All right, y'all, I'm super excited for this video. We're talking Fort Collins. Fort Collins is just such a sweet and somewhat underrated spot. This is Old Town Fort Collins, a big, well, not tall, but a pretty sizable and very, very charming downtown. What do you say? Should we dive in? Let's dive in. How's it going, my friends? My name is Jesse Lynch and I work with the hardest working real estate team in the game. We're called Welcome to Denver, and you can check out our website, welcometodenver.co, as in Colorado. But this YouTube channel is all about helping you find a place to call home, a place to land. It's here for you as a resource when moving to Colorado or when buying a house for the first time in Colorado, or both at the same time. So if any of that appeals to you, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, subscribe to the channel, click the bell to get notified so you can see every time we put these videos out. And if you wouldn't mind, give the video a thumbs up, say something nice or helpful or funny or abstract in the comments, anything at all. I'd appreciate that. It's helpful not just to this YouTube channel and this real estate team, but to other people like yourselves who are looking for this kind of information. And of course, I say this every video, but I truly mean it. If you are thinking about moving to Denver or to Colorado, to the Front Range, anywhere really, then get a hold of us and we will crush it for you. You can go to our website, welcometodenver.co. We have a contact form there that you can fill out in like 30 seconds or less, or you can shoot us an email directly to info@welcometodenver.co. It'll lead to the same inbox, so totally up to you how you do it. We just ask that you do, and we'll get the show on the road. And also, just I say this often in these videos, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's trusted us to work with us. Just so happy to be able to help so many people make the move here. Hopefully this channel is individually helpful, right? Just helps people on its own, finding a place to call home here. But when we actually, have the luxury, have the pleasure of helping somebody literally physically move, then that's something really special. So thank you so much to anybody who has trusted us so far in this process. We've been doing this channel for a hot minute now. I think like a year and a half almost. So that's crazy. I think we just hit 2,000 followers not too long ago. Also crazy. So thanks. I know that's not like a mega YouTube channel, but for how niche it is, that feels pretty good. But sorry for gushing, that's just, it's just who I am as a person. Right now I'm in a place called The Oval, and this is in Colorado State University's campus. Beautiful little green space, park space, taking laps around this oval. And the architecture here is beautiful. I very often just think, university and college architecture is gorgeous, and this place is no exception. But today we're not just talking about this university, we're taking a look at all of Fort Collins, and it's a beast. It's so big that I think we probably will have to do other videos breaking it down into smaller sections. But for now, here's just Fort Collins, as much of it, as diverse of a look at it as possible. Let's go. All right, y'all, right now I'm at City Park, just a great little park situated around Sheldon Lake right here. And it's just one of many, many, many park spaces here in Fort Collins. And like I said, Fort Collins it's its own entity. It's not a suburb of Denver, as you can probably tell if you look at a map, and it's still just about an hour north of Denver. And it doesn't just have its own identity, it kind of has its own soul, right? It's a very different experience than being in Denver or just about anywhere else around Denver. It's a sizable city, right? And you know, it's 60 minutes from Denver, 60 minutes from Boulder, 60-ish minutes to the airport, and it's sizable, right? 176,000 people live in Fort Collins. That's the 4th largest city in the state. And pretty much on all sides of it are pretty much small towns, unincorporated rural areas. So again, very much like a standalone city in Colorado. We started out in the old town. That is such a special spot. There are houses from the 1800s. There's, you know, shops and restaurants and just like really cool vibe in that downtown. I think it's a very special downtown space. It's not huge, right? It's not skyscrapers, but it spreads this way in a way that is quite nice and just charming. I'm a fan. And this park space is fairly modest in the grand scheme, right? This is a nice municipal park in the city. It provides nice character to the city and all that. But you have to the west, naturally, you have the Rocky Mountains. That seems so obvious. You have the Horsetooth Mountains, which are a very distinctive rock formation. That's something that's, you know, pretty special about Fort Collins. Similar to Boulder. Boulder has the Flatirons. Fort Collins has the Horsetooth Mountains. And Fort Collins, it's decent size, but it isn't huge. And the metro area is not a whole lot bigger than Fort Collins itself, right? We did a virtual tour on Loveland not super long ago, but that's probably the closest sort of city, and it maybe is a standalone city, it's maybe a suburb of Fort Collins, but nonetheless, like, you have Loveland to the south, and then just about nothing else. Beautiful mountain range off to the west, and as it seems right now, so many geese, but that's just actually just true of Colorado right now. One very nice sort of amenity, one very nice addition or luxury in Fort Collins is that they actually have very good school districts. Primarily you have Padre School District, that gets an A, and that's ranked the 10th best school district in Colorado according to niche.com. That fundamentally operates all of the schools, the public schools in the city of Fort Collins, and also sort of the surrounding more rural areas as well. And then you also have access to Thompson School District. That's not rated quite as high, still rated pretty good. It gets a B, and it's the 23rd best school district for athletes in Colorado. Now again, this place is very large, so you have a huge variety of school options, right? You have Fossil Ridge High School, that gets an A. You have Fort Collins High School, that gets an A. You have Rocky Mountain High School, that gets an A, and you have Padre High School, that gets an A-. So 4 high schools A- or higher. That's hard to be super mad at. In terms of middle schools, you have, again, many good options. I'll kind of read off the hits. Kennard Core Knowledge Middle School, A-. Preston Middle School, A-. Lesher Middle IB World, I think, or 1B World or something like that. That's an A-. And then for elementary schools, of course, you have many great options as well. And now again, I think it's a particularly nice value proposition that these great schools are here. You have all the charm, right, that we've been talking about, but you also have pretty affordable home prices. Median home price is just under $600,000 here, which I know is not super cheap, but it's cheaper than the Denver metro, and that's the median over a lot of homes. So the barrier for entry into Fort Collins buying a home is quite a bit cheaper than a lot of other scenarios, than a lot of other places, because again, it's very large. Median is just under 600, and yeah, there's beautiful housing stock, a very diverse housing stock. Again, it's its own city, so it's been developed over many years, decades and decades. And so you have, you know, from beautiful old historic homes in the 1800s to brand new builds and everything in between. But all right, what do you say? Should we go for a drive, check it out a little bit more, and then we're gonna talk through pros and cons. And actually, I've thought about making a whole other pros and cons video, but for now, I'll try to sum it up in this video, and maybe I'll do a much more in-depth pros and cons video. I think I should do a cost of living video as well. All right, let's go. All right, y'all, right now I'm basically right at the parking lot, one of the parking lots for the Horsetooth Reservoir, which is a huge reservoir, especially by Colorado standards. And that's just on the other side of that. There's gonna be tons of B-roll and stuff with that, plenty of that. But there's a lot of people over there. I don't wanna be annoying while people are trying to enjoy, you know, the beautiful view. So I'm on this side. With that said, there's a pretty epic view of Fort Collins down this way, and yeah, it's a beautiful drive too, by the way. If you end up in Fort Collins, I suggest at least taking a drive up this way. You can follow it basically to its completion, and it's just such a beautiful spot up here. But I figured this is a good spot to talk through the pros and cons of Fort Collins as I see them, and yeah, it's a pretty good mix here. You know, I'm a big fan, so full disclosure, I really like Fort Collins. I think it's really charming. I could absolutely imagine living here, and really having a very fulfilled life, you know. But that's not to say it's not without some cons, and I know that some of the folks that we help might not find this to be the perfect place, but we definitely have already helped some folks by here, and so, you know, I know for sure that it does the trick for some people. So pro number one is there's honestly so many outdoor spaces, and you have such an awesome access to the outdoors here, whether that's in the city, you know, the more municipal parks, or these huge open spaces on the west side of the city, or, you know, to this reservoir, to the Horsetooth Mountains in general. You have a really good access to it, which actually is pro number two, is that it is truly situated. I mean, you can see it, right? It's right down there. It is truly situated right along the Horsetooth Mountains. So you have access to some pretty gorgeous trails and views and all that, literally minutes from downtown Fort Collins, which is a pretty solid, you know, value proposition. There's also a little bit higher density of water elements up here than the likes of Denver. There's just more reservoirs, more lakes, at least in a smaller area than you'll find in Denver, which, as a born Minnesota boy, I appreciate water, and I think everybody kind of does. But it's nice to see it. I think I said that in the Loveland video as well. It's just nice to see it. They got a couple really good lakes in Loveland. Speaking of pretty good, you have really good schools, actually. There's access to, I would say, almost surprisingly good schools for a city that is an hour outside of a major metro. You know, undeniably solid schools here. I think I read the 4 high schools, they're all A- or higher. So yeah, I mean, that is really good, really nice to see, and I think quite impressive for a town like this. Not to mention you have Colorado State University, you know? And then when you tie that all in with the fact that it's relatively affordable, especially compared to Boulder, and I would say compared to Denver, you know, 600,000, just under 600,000 is the median, and there are homes, nice homes available for considerably lower than that. So when we have folks who are not necessarily geographically tied to Denver, they like I want to live in Denver, but I also don't need to live in Denver. Fort Collins is a great option where you have, you know, that Colorado living lifestyle without being in Denver proper. You get more house for your money on the whole, and you still have a totally complete lifestyle, like, for example, tons of suburban amenities. There's fundamentally like an absolute megaplex. I don't think that's what they probably call it, but of suburban amenities in Fort Collins. When it comes to the suburban amenities, let me just list off a few things that are here. If you're like, well, does it have? Yeah, it has a ton of stuff. So it has Foothill Shopping Mall, it has Target, it has a Home Depot, a Best Buy, an REI, car dealerships, every chain restaurant you could ever imagine, pretty much every grocery store you could ever imagine. They do have a Whole Foods. That's always something I'm checking for. And they have a Guitar Center, a Lowe's, many Starbucks, a Walmart, Costco, actually Costco. Some of y'all might be like, oh, they have a Costco. Okay, all right, we're in business, you know, but it's not just the suburban amenities either, right? That downtown area that I was earlier is so cute. I know you're seeing a lot of footage of it throughout this video. What a cute spot. It's just so charming and big. It's not like, you know, like Erie has a downtown, but it's like, it's pretty small. You know, it's a few things. This downtown is pretty complete. There are several options. And I mean, I think the downtown area serves the total, you know, 175,000 population quite well, because there's just so much stuff going on. So then what are the cons, right? Of course there are some cons in Fort Collins, and I think the big one is that you're fairly isolated up here. You know, you're an hour from Denver. There's only rural things anywhere around you other than Loveland, which is basically just to the south. It's like, it's the end of the road, right? Any further north, it's totally rural, and then it's Wyoming, you know? And then too, because you're isolated from Denver, Denver is the major metro of Colorado, obviously, which means that a lot of the cultural events, sporting events, concerts, theater, the arts, all that kind of thing, that's mostly going to be in Denver. Not to say that you can't catch an awesome show here, right? Not to say there isn't a music scene and all that in Fort Collins, but you gotta know that there's way more of it an hour that way. And if you're big into sports, yeah, it's like, well, there's no professional sports teams in Fort Collins, you know, so you gotta go to Denver for any of that. Again, that sort of island, that standalone city aspect is also gonna lead to the fact that there's some areas that aren't gonna be as aesthetically pleasing, some areas that aren't gonna be as well kept as others. It's big, right? So in the same way that Denver has nicer spots and uglier spots, so too will Fort Collins. But because it's so big, I feel like I can hardly count that as a pro. Hey, by the way, if you're watching right now, leave in the comments, should we do a video that's like best neighborhoods of Fort Collins, or like coolest neighborhoods, something like that? Leave a comment, would appreciate that. If nobody leaves a comment, man, come on. Maybe I'll just make it anyway, but leave a comment. And now another con is that, yeah, the downtown is adorable, but you know, it's definitely not downtown Denver. You know, there is no real urban lifestyle to be had here. There might be a cute, you know, cozy downtown, like historic lifestyle to be had, for sure. That is definitely something you can have here. But if you're looking for super urban, you know, taking Ubers all over the place, it's not really gonna be a thing here, you know? Not to say that there isn't public transportation, which there is, but nonetheless, that urban lifestyle that you can get in Denver, that like purely walkable lifestyle, that's gonna be much harder to come by here in Fort Collins. You also have basically no skyline. I mean, you can see, right? I mean, you see anything poking up particularly high? No, right? It's a pretty short city, and so no skyline. If you want like a condo with, you know, high up with really cool views, like you're not gonna be able to get that here. And then I think kind of on that same like no urban lifestyle, kind of, it's a little bit of a diversion, is that there's not a ton of diversity here, right? Culturally, maybe it's a little bland, maybe it's a bit vanilla, if you will. I'm gonna add that as kind of the last con. And maybe this is a pro, maybe this is a con, I'll let you decide, but there's been pretty solid population growth here. Fort Collins is definitely growing, and growing relatively quickly. 22% population growth over the last decade. That is pretty impressive. So real quick, I'm gonna give you one last, just yeah, that's what I'm talking about, you know what I mean? And then I think I'm gonna head back into the city, and we're gonna talk through some other spots to consider if you like Fort Collins. This is tricky because Fort Collins is interesting. It's a unique proposition. All right. I mean, you didn't think I was just gonna not let you see this reservoir and these views, did you? Come on, you know me better than that. I love a view. I'm gonna do one where it turns around also. right, y'all, right now I'm in a neighborhood called Huntington Hills. I just wanted to shoot here to kind of show you that, you know, although we spent a lot of time in either like rural, totally green spaces, open spaces, or, you know, closer into the downtown area, well, there is a suburban side of Fort Collins as well. It still is Fort Collins, but I mean, this very much feels like many suburbs. And it feels high-end, it feels really nice, and there are homes, you know, 3-bed, 3-bath homes in this neighborhood for right around $600,000, which is pretty good, I would say, especially compared to things closer to Denver. And I mean, these houses right here might be closer to $1 million because they have a pretty awesome view. They have like a water view as well as some mountain views over this way. So definitely a very cool spot right here. And anyhow, you know, we're talking for fans of. If you watch these videos, maybe if this might be your first video. If you are only looking for Fort Collins stuff, we haven't done much on Fort Collins, anything really. So this may be the first video you've watched. If that's the case, then just let me explain this to you. My For Fans of section, it's like basically what I have to say is, if you like what you see here, what are some other places in Colorado that might do the trick, right? What are some other places around Denver that will feel at all similar? Kind of like back in the day when you get a CD and they would say, you know, hey, if you like this band, here's another band to listen to. Anyhow, before I dive into that, I would just like to say that if you are thinking about moving to Fort Collins or anywhere in Denver or anywhere along the Front Range of Colorado, then get a hold of us and we will crush it for you. Nobody will work harder for you than we will, whether you're moving here from somewhere else or you live here and you're just trying to buy a house. That's what we do, that's what we specialize in. So get a hold of us. You can go to our website, welcometodenver.co. We have a contact form there that you can fill out in like 30 seconds or less, or you could just shoot us an email directly to info@welcometodenver.co. They lead to the same inbox, so it's totally up to you how you do it. We just ask that you do it. How beautiful is this neighborhood, by the way? But all right, let's dive in. For Fort Collins. This is a little complicated. I don't think there's anything truly quite like Fort Collins. I would say that first, an obvious one, because geographically it's very close by, is Loveland. Loveland does have a lot in common. It's smaller. I think it's not quite as complete, you know. It's definitely a little cozier and very much like a satellite of Fort Collins, you know. But it's still, there's a lot of charm. There's tons of homes to choose from. Some absolutely epic homes, beautiful views, and all that. So Loveland, I do think, is a pretty good sort of peer to Fort Collins. The next would be Longmont. I think Longmont isn't quite, isn't quite as close as maybe Loveland, not just geographically, just in like feel. Maybe a little more suburban, maybe not quite as complete, you know, or not quite as well-rounded as a Fort Collins. But nonetheless, we know that people who are looking at Longmont are considering Fort Collins as well. So I think that's why I would want to include that as well. So what if you're not geographically tied to, you know, this general area, but you know you want to move to Colorado? Maybe you're thinking Denver, you don't love all the prices in Denver, so that brought you to Fort Collins. Very fair. You are not alone in that assertion, right? I think there are two spots that maybe make the most sense to me that are like in the Denver metro area. Almost just fell there, no big deal. And those are Westminster and Thornton. Now, okay, let me be clear. They both totally lack the charm in the downtown of Fort Collins. Utterly without it, but the affordability is there. Though they both have medians right around the $600,000 mark, which is a pretty good asset to be that close into Denver and to be able to buy a nice home in a nice neighborhood. But very suburban, quite bland in the grand scheme of things. Still good outdoor spaces and all that. So those come to mind when we're talking price. If you're like, I know, but I just want to be closer into Denver, definitely worth considering those two spots. But let's say, you want the idea of it sort of being a satellite town. You want it to be somewhat removed from Denver for whatever reason. Then you could consider Colorado Springs. Colo Spigs, as I like to call it. Colo Spigs is basically just the southern version of Fort Collins. That said, this is just pure bias based on which one I think is more charming and all that. that, I like Fort Collins quite a bit more. I just think it's cuter. I think it's just, I don't know, they're more inviting up here. That's just my opinion. Whereas I feel like Colorado Springs can feel like, hey, I can't afford Denver, so Colorado Springs it is. It feels like you're just settling for it a little bit more. No offense to Colorado Springs. I do like some of Colorado Springs, but in general, I think up here feels more akin to Denver. It feels like you're not sacrificing quite as much. Just totally out there. And there are some really cool things. Garden of the Gods is great in Colorado Springs. So don't let me totally discourage you from that with that statement. But that's just my, my personal opinion. I think I would personally rather live in Fort Collins than in Colorado Springs. What a beautiful park this is. But all right, the reality is there are other spots that maybe fit into price, that are some combination of these things, and we're happy to help you through with that. But get a hold of us and we'll be able to walk you through what those spots might be. And check out where I am right now. This is Fossil Creek Park, basically right on the other side of this. And I mean, how cool is that neighborhood, right? To have this in the backyard. And I'm talking in the 600,000s, you can buy a house. And these are big houses. These are 2,000 square feet with maybe an unfinished basement. That's pretty cool. But hey, I'll see you in the next video. Hope you've enjoyed this one. As always, if you haven't done so yet, what are you doing? Subscribe to the channel. Come on, give the video a thumbs up. All right, I'm done. Bye-bye.